Welcome to Webb Weekly Live. I'm here with Forrest Lehman, Director of Lycoming County Elections and Voter Services. Good to see you, Forrest.
Good to see you, too.
Little fist bump to you over there.
Yes,
I love
remotely.
talking with you. We've talked before, I've interviewed you, and you're a very interesting person who has a very big job that sometimes flies under the radar. However, with the COVID-19 pandemic and it being an election season, you've been facing some interesting challenges.
Yes, it's been a more complicated job than ever, and nothing we do flies under the radar in a presidential election year. You know, it's a time when a lot more people than usual are tuned into the process. They're following what's going on with elections, and obviously COVID-19 has added a lot of complicating factors to what we do, which is telling a lot of people to all show up at the same places at the same time on election day to cast ballots. So it has been a new challenge for us.
And I think the biggest misconception may be that voting by mail makes it easier on you. It's actually the opposite. It creates some extra additional problems. Not to mention, you and I talked about the mail having to go to Harrisburg to come back to Williamsport, but that's an issue for another day.
Right.
But let's start out. We're here today to educate everybody on how to vote, upcoming election. And why don't we just turn it over to you and tell us what's going on, because to me, there's nothing more important in the United States of America to exercise your right to vote and to be heard. And
Yeah.
I know you feel the same way.
Yes.
And the other thing I will tell everybody, this isn't a political issue between Forrest and I. We believe at this point in American history and this time during this virus that the most important thing is people vote.
Absolutely.
And he doesn't care if it's by carrier pigeon, isn't that right?
No,
So-
no. We want everybody's voices to be
We want
heard.
everybody's voices. So I'm going to turn it over to you because you're the guy with the details. The most important thing that we need to accomplish is the options that the American citizen has here in Lycoming County.
Right. And you know, there has been, unfortunately, a lot of confusion out there about what voters' options are for June 2nd. You know, first and foremost, it's important for the public to know that the primary is still happening on June 2nd. It is on as scheduled. The polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. for in-person voting. So voters who want to can go to their polling place and vote as they have in other elections. At this point, we do plan to have all of the county's voting precincts open. And so that is an option for everybody to still vote in person. We have had many voters, however, who did apply to vote absentee or vote a new product called a mail-in ballot that was introduced by Act 77 of 2019. We've received many of those applications, sent out a lot of ballots. We're over 9,500 last time I checked, which is
significant in Lycoming County.
Yeah, that's an extraordinary number.
That is a number.
And as you kind of alluded to at the very beginning of our conversation, that's like running a second election on top of the in-person voting operation. It adds an entirely new aspect to what we're doing to mail out, receive back, and ultimately count that many ballots that come back to us in the mail.
Can I interrupt you just for a second?
Sure.
One thing I do want to interrupt and say is, I can guarantee you, the citizen of Lycoming County, this man here is of the highest integrity, and he will do everything. It has nothing to do with political decision. It has everything to do with being heard, and he will do everything possible to make sure every vote is counted and every person's voice is heard. And I know you will take care of that. And I know we don't want to get into politics, but this isn't about Republican or Democrat or what the proper thing to do is, whether voting in person. This is about voting. And I guarantee this man will take care of this.
I appreciate the kind words.
Oh, you're welcome.
and the compliments.
But I think that's important because a lot of times people don't see your face or know who you are, and I want them. There's a lot of great people in Lycoming County.
Yeah.
You know, I have the coroner on speed dial right now.
Yeah.
And he's a great person, and you're one of those people. So I'm going to be quiet now.
Well, and I should stress, you know, based on what you said, that the Office of Voter Services, it is nonpartisan. You know, I'm not an elected official. We're government employees, and our job is to run the election, to run the process. And so what we do is it's not about politics. It's not about, you know, outcomes of who wins or who loses. We just want to make sure the election gets delivered properly to everybody. And so, yes, we're getting a lot of phone calls right now, voters with questions about voting in person, if they'll still be able to, what that will look like. Voters who have applied for absentee and mail-in ballots, with questions about, how do I fill this out and get it returned, or is my ballot not arrived yet? Can you mail me another one? Which we've regrettably had to do for some people because we're seeing some long delivery times with the post office.
I know all about that.
Yeah, so there's been a lot more moving parts than usual. I should note that, a lot of the questions we've gotten from people have been, what is voting going to look like on June 2nd if I go to a polling place? And it will look different than what people are used to. We are implementing additional health and safety precautions at our polling places to try to minimize risk to the voters and also to our poll workers. Because they're going to be out there all day, making sure the wheels of democracy are turning for everybody. And so if you know a poll worker, please thank them because they're doing a wonderful public service on June 2nd.
And I can tell you, they will go above and beyond to make sure the public is safe. I know your
Yeah.
folks, so.
Yeah. So things that people should be prepared for if they go out in person to vote on June 2nd is that the polling places are going to have fewer voting areas set up than usual. And that's by design. We want them to have fewer people at a time inside voting in order to promote social distancing, limit the overall occupancy. Voters should expect longer lines that may even extend outdoors because we're asking poll workers to mark line positions, on
Sure.
the floor, on the inside.
6 feet of space between each voter.
Exactly. And so it won't take too many people in line before that goes out the door. And we just want voters to be prepared for that like they have been, in some cases, going to area businesses where we've seen similar practices in place. We are urging voters to wear a mask for their own protection and also for the protection of the poll workers. We're asking them also to bring their own pen, although we will have pens available at the polling place. But if they bring their own pen, then they won't have to, touch the ones that are available. We are going to have hand sanitizer available. We think the best thing for voters to do will be, as soon as they get in, use the hand sanitizer that's available before they interact with things inside the polling place. And then finally, just for everybody to try to respect our poll workers. They've got a tougher job than usual on June 2nd. They're going to be doing the best they can to help everybody out. But if you had a long wait, try to be respectful of the poll workers anyway, because they're the ones trying to make it all work.
Are you still short poll workers at this point? Because you and I had a conversation
Yeah.
a week or so ago.
We went through a long process back in April and going into early May where we were recruiting a lot of poll workers. We were losing poll workers at a number of precincts, 7 or 8 precincts. I think we lost a significant number. We were ultimately able to send mailings out to those areas, recruit additional poll workers. I think we're back up at a good level of staffing for the primary, for the in-person turnout we're expecting to see, which I think will be lower than usual. So I think we're in a good place.
Excellent.
Manpower-wise.
Excellent.
And I think that's better for everyone. We've had some counties that were harder hit by this than we are, where they've had to consolidate. They've done that out of necessity, not by choice.
So I don't need to volunteer.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
I was going to try to recruit, that's where, but that's fantastic.
Maybe for November.
Okay.
We'll,
Hey, if you need me, I'm
Yeah.
available. I want to make sure that that anybody that wants to go vote in person feels comfortable, just like you.
Right. So that is an option for people who want to vote in person. At the same time, as of the date we're streaming this or recording this on Friday the 22nd, voting by mail is still an option. It's a lawful alternative. Absentee voting, of course, has always been with us, but Act 77 introduced mail-in balloting, so a voter who has a personal preference to vote by mail instead of in person has that option. And they have until Tuesday the 26th to return an application to voter services for an absentee or a mail-in ballot. It is important to note that postmarks don't count, so they do have to get it into the office. But if we receive the application by then, we can issue an absentee or a mail-in ballot. And those voters have until 8 p.m. on June 2nd, the close of polls on Election Day, to get their voted ballot back to us.
And I'm going to jump in there because I deal with United States Postal Service every week, and they do the best job they can, but
Yeah.
they've enacted this rule where the mail has to go to Harrisburg to come back to our local communities.
Yeah.
And fortunately, the Webb Weekly isn't that way. I got a waiver that, however, so folks, it isn't like you can mail it in Montoursville and it's going to show up the next day. It's
Yeah.
going to take a couple days. So it has to be here by May the 2nd at
Yeah.
8 p.m.?
8 p.m. Yeah.
So what that brings us to, and maybe I'll lead you a little bit, that brings us to the next point. You can bring the ballot down. Even though you get it by mail, you can bring it
Yes.
down and hand deliver it, or have somebody do it for you.
Yeah, voters can complete any or all the steps of the process of applying for, receiving, voting, and returning their mail-in ballot. You can do any or all of that in person. Act 77 now even permits voters to vote that ballot in our office, which before they weren't permitted to do. And we're definitely getting to the point where we would not advise a voter to entrust that process to too many more trips through the mail.
Sure.
Because you just start to run out of days
Yeah.
between now and those deadlines.
And I always figure, and I know sometimes it's quicker, 5 days to go to Harrisburg and come back. Is that what you're figuring?
It's, the biggest problem we've seen is lack of consistency.
Yeah.
We've gotten calls from voters where a person and their spouse applied the same day, and one got the ballot and the other didn't. We've had people receiving their ballots in 3 days, and we've had other people receive them in 12. It's this just wild swings as to, depending on what day you applied, maybe,
Sure.
or just, different circumstances that you can have these wildly diverging delivery timeframes.
So at this point, if you register to vote by mail, the best thing to do is get your ballot completed and bring it back here. Or
Right.
have somebody bring it back here.
Exactly.
For heaven's sakes, if you don't have anybody, if you're an older citizen of our county and you've paid your dues, if you don't have somebody to bring it back here, call the Webb Weekly offices and I will have somebody pick it up and make sure your vote gets back here. Just won't be me because I misplace things. No, it might be
Exactly.
me, but people know I lose things. But anyway,
Yeah.
back to you.
And so it is a good alternative to voting in person, but because we're running out of time, as Jim said, think a lot about just coming into the office and completing the process. We have been open to the public since Monday this week, May 18th. We had been closed to walk-in traffic, except for on an as-needed basis until recently, but we opened our doors on the 18th so that people can come in and complete this in-person business.
And
at
I
the
have
last
to get,
minute.
somebody held the post every day, even though you weren't walking, you guys were working.
That's right. We were working behind the closed doors, and if somebody had a specific need for conducting in-person business, we were allowing people to come in. But if it was something like, I need an application, or I need this or that, we were directing people to the website or else putting documents into the mail so that they weren't coming in. Because I have to think about my staff. We had other county staff in there. It's already kind of tight quarters. Obviously, conducting elections is a critical government function, when you get into this time frame. And so we were, balancing the interests of individual voters to be able to conduct the business they need against the interests of being able to conduct an election for the tens of thousands of voters we have in the county.
Gotcha. What else you got there, sir?
Well, I guess just looking ahead to the actual election day and the election results, we've gotten a lot of questions from the public about how will all of these mail-in ballots and absentee ballots affect the results that we see on election night?
Somebody's
And
got to count them.
That's right. That's right. These envelopes have to be open. They have to be counted. Counties are allowed to start doing that at 7 a.m. on election day. But when you're looking at upwards of 10,000 ballots potentially we could have, that's going to take a lot of time.
And definitely will.
And it may be that we won't know all of those results election night. We're going to make that attempt. We're going to try to get through everything on election day. But when you zoom out of Lycoming County and look statewide, there are many counties that will not be doing that. There are many counties that will not be starting to what we call canvass their absentee and mail-in ballots until Wednesday or Thursday, or maybe even Friday. The law gives them until Friday to start their canvass. And so when you look at kind of statewide races, that could make a more complicated picture in terms of knowing what happened on election night for some of those. Maybe not the presidential race, but you have a 5-way primary on the Democratic ballot for Auditor General, for instance, and that could take longer to know the outcome.
Well, since I haven't been able to watch sports, at least that'll give me something where there's a score being kept I can watch, huh?
Well, there you go. I mean, we will start posting results after the close of polls. Usually they start coming up on the county website around 8:30 p.m. To the extent that we are able to get absentees and mail-ins scanned in, they will be reflected in those results. But if there are some that we don't get through on election night, then you'll have a multi-day event that you get to follow then to watch, to see how that changes. We always have some ballots that aren't reflected on election night. Even before we had this number of mail-in ballots, you had military ballots, overseas civilian ballots that could come in up to 7 days after the election.
Have we ever had an election close enough in Lycoming County that you had to wait until after the military ballots came in the 7-day, or have they all been pretty much decided?
Not really. Maybe there was a local race where
Right.
they could have had an impact. I can think of maybe there was a supervisor race or two where they had a single-digit margin, and if there happened to be a military ballot out
Right.
in that precinct, maybe it could have made a difference. But generally, we're talking about maybe 100, 150
Right.
of those.
Not enough to really sway, I mean.
No, now there's the potential for there to be a lot more.
You made another good point, and I think we should mention it, that you have track of every ballot that's mailed out, so you know
Yes.
whether they're returned or not returned.
Yeah.
And you take it personal to try to get 100% accountability for every ballot.
Right. Every mail-in ballot counts the same as a vote cast at a precinct. They're
Right.
equal. Every ballot does get counted. There seems to be this, idea that you hear thrown out there every once in a while that, well, maybe they don't count the mail-in ballots if the race isn't close or something like that. But every ballot gets counted every time. If it comes back to us, we count it. It may take a few days after the election, but it will get counted. And so nobody should worry about that.
You and I just never thought we'd be sitting here talking about 10,000 ballots being mailed in, right?
No.
I mean, that's the big change.
No, and to some extent, that's not a presidential year problem. It's
Right.
not a COVID-19 problem. That really came about as a result of Act 77.
Right.
It gave people the option, and there is no upper limit on how many people could decide that they want to vote by mail. We have 68, going into this election, we have 68,000 registered voters, probably more like 60,000 Ds and Rs who are eligible to vote in the primary, but theoretically, there would be nothing to stop all of them from saying, I want to vote by mail. I want to apply for a mail-in ballot, or even on top of that, I want to be a permanent mail-in voter. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's a lawful thing that they can do, but that's a challenge that then every county needs to be prepared for, is how high could that go?
I have to ask you that Ds and Rs, I don't know that, is that
Oh.
dragons and reptiles?
Sorry.
Or- No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, Pennsylvania's a closed primary state.
I know,
so,
I'm just pulling your leg.
yeah,
What
so-
else you got for us?
Yeah.
You're a busy guy. When we came in, the phones were just ringing, and you up to your, thanks for taking the time today with us.
It's no problem. It's important to, get this information out. And we're taking so many phone calls because a lot of people are making these calls to us individually, asking us, similar questions that come up over and
Oh,
over
yeah.
again. So the chance to talk to you or put an ad in the paper is really a chance to address some of these questions that come up all the time. So,
And I'm going to use that. Everything that we're covering today, there's some older citizens that might not be able to watch it online, to be watching on their cell phone. Our cover next
Yeah.
week is a tribute to Forrest Lehman and Lycoming County Voter Services. No, it's seriously voting during the COVID crisis, and it will have everything we talked about within the Webb Weekly. And if there's an older person that might need an explanation that does better reading, please make sure they take a look at it and read it. By all means, everybody read it, but I know a lot of people will get this information via you and I here.
Yeah.
And I'm serious. If there is somebody that is concerned about getting their vote back in, call my Webb Weekly office, 570-326-9322. I will pick it up or make sure your vote gets in here and gets counted. Now, don't call me at 7:50 on Tuesday night. I mean, give me a little bit of time, so. Go ahead.
We're trying to approach and engage with the public in a lot of different ways. We have a lot of information on the Voter Services website, everything we talked about.
Tell us how to get there, Forrest.
Well, if you go to the county website, lyco.org, lyco.org, there's a department's link there, and Voter Services is at the bottom. And we always keep a lot of information there about registering to vote online, applying for an absentee ballot or mail-in ballot online, a lot of information relevant to whatever the upcoming election is. And then in addition to that, we do also try to reach out via traditional print medium for people that are not spending that much time online. And that's why, a lot of the information we discussed here today about what voters should know going into the polling place on June 2nd, that's going to appear in the Webb Weekly the week before. We have an ad scheduled to run in the Sun Gazette.
And the Williamsport Sun Gazette, I got to give them, they do a very good job of covering what's going on here.
Sure.
So obviously, they're the daily paper of record.
Right.
Which is important. So don't be afraid to, if you like going to the website, go to the website, look at the hard copy, but there's good info in there.
Yeah. So we're trying to get this information out to everybody so they know what to expect when they go in and vote on June 2nd. So if you prefer the web, go to our website. If that doesn't work for you, wait.
And you prefer the web? Go to the web?
Or that web, yeah. You'll
Right.
find it in the Webb Weekly or the newspaper, yeah.
Hey, probably just the last thing to cover. Some people are confused where you're located, and I mean, obviously I know because I spend a lot of time downtown.
Yeah.
But go ahead, I'll let you tell them.
Yeah, a few years ago, the Voter Services Office moved out of Executive Plaza, and so since late 2014, we have been over at what's called 3rd Street Plaza. The physical address is 33 West 3rd Street, but we are directly across 3rd Street from the county courthouse. It's the building where Sovereign Bank used to be. Julie's Coffee is still there on the 1st floor. There are several county offices in this building, notably our office on the 1st floor. Also, the treasurer's office is there on the 1st floor. So if you've been here, for instance, to get a dog license, a doe tag, something like that, you've already been right next to Voter Services and not even known it.
Or a dog license and a doe tag. That's a
Or
great
both.
combination.
Yeah.
But, and where you come in is the main front doors, like you said. You go back the long hallway, and you're the last door back on the 1st floor, right?
That's right.
And what we're going to do when we leave here is I'm actually going to go out and we're going to walk in just to show you. Because, I mean, people, a couple of the calls down there were people wondering where you're at. And we'll try to make it as
Exactly.
simple as possible. Anything we didn't cover?
I don't think so, yeah.
Fantastic. And again, the most important thing, and Forrest is as straight up as they come. His main concern is making sure everybody's vote is counted, and he will do that. The most important thing to him and I both is that there's a high number of votes to count. You agree with that?
That's right.
We would be happy if every person in Lycoming County voted.
That's right. I don't want to get I want to get dressed up for nothing. I
And-
want everybody coming out.
Please exercise the right that you have to vote, the privilege you have to vote. It's been signed for and paid for in blood by the American soldier to provide this freedom, and it's how you have a voice. Thing you want to add to that?
No, I think you said it.
And God bless America, get out and vote, or mail it in. So I'm back outside on 3rd Street, downtown Williamsport, right across from the courthouse, right next to Julie's Coffee, 33 West 3rd Street. For those of you, I know this has been an issue because folks still think voter services in the courthouse. Simple, I got to throw my mask on here to walk in. Go to the right. And then you're simply going to walk all the way down the hallway here to the last door on the right, Lycoming County Voter Services. They can take care of processing your ballot, getting your ballot. But at this point in time, if you're getting a mail-in ballot, it's important that it gets back here. And the best thing might be to deliver it yourself or have somebody deliver it for you. Obviously, voter services would prefer you delivered it yourself. So we'll go right down in here. Get a little exercise here. Lycoming County Voter Services. Walk in the door. And then these nice ladies here will take care of you. All your voting needs, right, ladies?
That's right.
It's that simple. Hey, be safe out there, be healthy, and God bless America.